6:31, we'll call the school committee meeting to order. Our first, do we have any minutes to approve before we do that?
You are going to vote to go into executive session.
But we have nothing before that?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so we'll have a roll call to go into executive session.
Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter
Actually, I should
30A,
read that, yeah.
Section 21, Part A3.
Yeah, let me read it.
To discuss strategy with regard to negotiations.
You don't want me to read it?
I'm reading.
Okay.
It's okay. With regard to negotiations with non-union personnel and collective bargaining, as doing so in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee will return to open session.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so now we can have the roll call, I guess.
Deanne Rakowski, aye. Jennifer Kern, aye.
Marie McCourt, aye.
Jim Petrus, aye.
And Ray Evan, aye. 8:17, and we're going to resume the open meeting of the school committee on May 16th, 2016. First of all, thank you all very much for waiting as we had our extended executive session. The only agenda item tonight is everyone's favorite.
Other than the minutes of the April 29th
Oh,
meeting.
okay. Two agenda items. The first one is to approve the minutes, and then we're going to go into the conversations around the budget. Did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes from April 29th? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, corrections to the minutes? All good? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going into our discussion around the budget. How are we going to do this, Judy?
Why don't I update you as to what this latest version,
Okay.
the changes that this latest version entails. After the public hearing, one of the things that was requested was the reinstatement of the halftime cut in the nursing department. Confirming with Mr. Cavallo around some numbers with regard to foreign language, we were able to eliminate a foreign language teacher position from Granby Junior Senior High School and use the offset, and use that as an offset towards the halftime nursing position. So the halftime nursing position is back in the budget, and it is because of a foreign language teacher elimination due to lack of enrollment
in
numbers.
the class, right?
So. The other thing was that following our public hearing and also following a meeting that you had prior to that, we were then asked to go to the Finance Committee meeting on May 5th. And as you recall, some of the numbers that we were looking at made an assumption that if we made a reduction in busing and transportation, that we would potentially use those dollars to fund operations, which is what we did in part last year. After our conversation with the Finance Committee, where they were not supportive of that idea, I also adjusted the revenue number from the town to correspond exactly to our transportation numbers. So that decreased that revenue from, hold on just one moment, while I get to that tab, that decreased that number from $814,844 to $740,000. A little more than 740, 740,004. So, where that leaves us at this juncture in time is now the gap between the net LEA revenue and expenses is now at $336,916.92. So the gap is a little higher than it was at the public budget hearing, due in large measure to not being able to have an agreement with the Finance Committee over the transportation dollars.
And I think that conversation is a tricky conversation always, but it seems to me that it is good practice for us to show that as a reduction in our revenue. That's fine, but I think also it may behoove us to have that conversation with the town meeting as well. That this is the reduction is a result of us trying to see how we could optimize the bus runs.
Correct.
with some crafty work around scheduling and all that, but making it work for the students, making it for everybody, but optimize those runs.
Right.
And with that, we were able to save money. Regardless how we look at it, we were able to save some money. And especially in a year like this, I think we are still in a position, and I think we would be in agreement to make the case that we would love to be able to use that amount for operational purposes.
Yeah, because
this is a
that's-
one-time thing. It's not a forever thing. Once this year goes by, that's our contract number anyway. So it's a one-time thing, so we can make the plea to the town meeting to see if we can
Right.
still use that amount for operational purposes.
So,
There? Is that? Okay.
Yep. So that's where we currently stand.
Okay.
So I've been working with administration again to see where we go from here. And there are some things that we have been able to do. We have not been able, I'm going to be very honest, to get all the way down on the gap
Okay.
at this point. There's about $124,000 that separates us and the net revenue.
124.
Yep.
Have those conversations that you mentioned finalized in a way that you can share some details, or basically we know the magnitude, but you have to have some additional conversations to be able to share that?
Some I can share with you. One of the things that I can share with you is that currently you pay someone to be a substitute coordinator. I've done some investigation into using an automated system for substitute procurement and scheduling and all of that kind of business that some area districts around us use, and have gotten a quote for a startup fee plus the fee to run the program that would save about $3,000 for that. I met with Mr. Cavallo today. We have talked about the potential of some other cuts in personnel to the tune of $147,779. Those are teaching positions that we would be looking at.
But we don't know what that means yet.
I can tell you what we talked about. In addition to the combined English social studies teacher and the foreign language teacher that we've already cut out, we would be looking at a half-time taking another social studies teacher down to 0.5 FTE, taking a high school English teacher down to a 0.5 FTE, and instead of hiring an additional special education teacher to run the structured learning classroom, that we would redeploy staff on hand to do that with a net savings of $76,000. We also had talked about bringing down guidance to 1.5 from 2 FTEs. We're also looking at, we have a social worker and a school adjustment counselor, of getting rid of one of the school adjustment counselor positions, putting the guidance counselor back up to full-time, and having the 2 guidance counselors take care of the school adjustment piece with the social worker to providing the next level of services up.
Can you explain to me, at the very least, school adjustment counselor, what does that role do?
School adjustment counselor is somebody that can be working and counseling with students. Guidance counselors are trained to do that anyway. They're not at the level of a school social worker. They don't have that license.
They don't.
And we currently have somebody who is really functioning in that role without a social work license. She's actually a school adjustment counselor. So we have a social worker, a school adjustment counselor, and then the 2 guidance counselors. So it would be an elimination of the school adjustment counselor position and then bringing the 2 guidance counselors up to the 2 FTEs. So instead of, 3.5 people, you'd be down to 3 people in the guidance thing.
And that corresponds to what type of
76.
savings?
That corresponds to a net savings of $14,774.
Okay. I'm sure I misunderstood you, but is there any licensing that the school adjustment counselor has that our guidance counselors may not have and therefore may not be able to do?
No, they're
Okay.
not required to be social workers, no.
What is the impact of the English social studies positions? I know that we have been trying to offer a wider spectrum of courses, including AP, some electives. This is partially related to all that additional courses that we have been trying to add, but also partially adding to the enrichment factor of schools. You know, just if we're just a school system that is catering to the tests, MCAS, or what have you, that's one thing. But we're hoping that the school system has the other additional flavors, some interesting electives, the arts, music, athletics, and everything else. Reducing it to this conversation alone, what is the impact in terms of classes that we may not be able to offer because we're cutting these positions?
It would mean higher numbers in the core content courses for English and social studies.
Okay.
There was the hope that we could offer a new AP elective. That's off the table. I don't think are we looking at any other AP electives off the table? Not at this point.
Just one AP elective?
Yeah, that would have been a new course anyway.
How about non-AP elective stuff? How about other electives?
Those are still intact.
And when you say higher numbers in those other two classes, what does that mean? How many?
Give or take, and we've got some low numbers in the 15s, 16s. We'd probably be looking at 23, 24, 25.
Okay. And when we say core classes, this excludes APs?
Yeah, so it would be like, English 9, higher class size, English 10, higher class size. Yeah.
How would that 23, 24 compare to other school districts?
It would
Around
be pretty normal compared to other school districts around us.
So one of the conversations that we keep on having is around school choice and all that. As we are now finding ourselves increasing the class sizes, how does that impede our ability to, one, admit, to begin with, some school choice students at the very least, and what is your impression as far as our attractiveness factor if we have 23, 24, 25 students in each one of these classes?
I have not seen any real push for high school students to choice in right at the moment. There seems to be more interest at the middle school level. With the cuts that we're already proposing at the elementary school level, we've had some people make some requests at second grade in which we have denied and put them on a waiting list. We've had one family I know of that has been choicing in that has decided to go back to their home district.
Okay.
Do we know why?
I'm assuming because of the budget.
So I will name names of classes. As far as electives, again, sociology, psychology, economics, no impact on these classes because we're cutting some of those positions?
Put me on the spot, huh? So these are obviously tough questions here, in terms of trying to give you viable answers. And, just so you visualize this, when you're talking about a half a cut in high school, you're talking about 2.5 classes. Teacher takes on as an FTE 5 classes. So in English it's 2.5. In social studies it's 2.5. And just to give you an idea, in social studies we have 2.5 electives. We have a full year legal studies, that's an elective. We have a full year psychology, that's an elective, and we have a half year sociology that you mentioned. That's your 2.5 equivalent there, your FTE. So as Dr. Houle said, we really need to massage the numbers. The last thing that we want to do is cut electives because it's what attracts kids. You know, we know the importance of having electives in our program of studies. Currently in English we have 2. So looking at those numbers, we're going to do everything we can to try to minimize our class sizes. As Dr. Houle said, maybe 24, 25, 26. You know, and then from there, after everything shakes out with scheduling, because we're in a process of scheduling, and scheduling is not an easy thing to do. It could be some lopsidedness depending upon where everything falls. We'll have to eventually make that decision when we see, you know, what we have. But the last thing I want to do is cut those 2.5 electives in the social studies as well as the 2 electives that we have in English.
But it
Thank you.
sounds like what you're saying is that it's a possibility.
It's a possibility.
If we have to go deeper.
Of course, the other thing is that since you mentioned the core classes, I mean, I say this maybe not very clearly, but each time these things come up, there is a visible impact of it. You know, you look at the iceberg, you see that, you know, there's something on top, and there is the additional ramification that we may not be seeing yet. We're talking about some core classes, and the fact of our educational system is that many of these core classes also prepare the kids to some tests. Is this, you know, having 25 students, and we're not used to that. I mean, it is the reality in many places, but we're not used to. Now we are jumping from the high teens to, mid-20s, let's say. Did we consider the potential impact of having such large class sizes in the ability of students to learn and therefore be successful in those tests that they are supposed to take?
I'm going to be honest with you about the research on class size. You got to be at two ends of the extremes. You got to be in the low teens or in the 30s for it to make a difference. The research over decades has been clear that nothing in between that matters. And there have been hundreds of studies done over the course of time on class size.
So, I'm not an educator, but I love doing my research as well. The one that seems to be very popular, and there's an acronym for it, and I forget, probably you guys know that one. Agreed that some of the larger sizes do not have a direct impact. But the impact happens at various levels. One is if you have a group of disadvantaged students, for instance, the impact on those students is much greater when you switch to larger class sizes. The other thing also that I believe now is agreed upon through a multitude of research is that kids actually benefit a lot more at younger ages from those smaller sizes, and that carries over. So what they did, they took the control groups and they looked at kids who actually had the opportunity to learn in the smaller class situations. And when they grew up and they went on, it actually seems to, at least this is what the research says, it seems to carry with them that they are more successful as they are older and they go to high school level and beyond. I mean, these are all statistical analysis. There's some truth, there's some art to it, and all that. But what I, for my part, am trying to do is, as we're making these decisions, at the end of the day, it looks like we're going to stand in front of the town and just make our case. If we have a good case, I think we're all still open to making that case. What I'm hoping is that we're not making the decisions because we are really cornered with these financial constraints, and that overwhelms some of our decisions. At the end of the day, as educators, you say, you know what, this is what it is. We'll give it a shot for 1 year. Let's see where we are, and there's really no visible impact through all these things that we have analyzed. We can still do that, but since we are going to approve the budget, and our primary concern is that the well-being of the school district, we want to make sure that we have the best information available to us to be able to make that decision. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and the other thing to point out in the research with class sizes, I looked at a lot of research too, and the number one factor is the effectiveness of the teacher. So if you have a highly effective teacher, it doesn't matter if she has or he has 15 students or 35 students. So I just think that's important, you know, to keep in mind.
There is a possibility, and I can't speak in any further detail than this right now, but there is a possibility of approximately some $62,000 in administrative savings as well. I am not at liberty to go into detail at
In
this moment.
addition to that 124.
No, that's
24,000.
part of the calculation.
Okay.
That has led us, so we're looking at $62,061 potentially in administrative savings. Again, I am not at liberty to talk about that right now. $147,778.50 in teaching positions that we have currently identified at Granby Junior Senior High School, above and beyond what's in the sheet you got tonight. And then the going to an automated system for substitutes at $3,000. That's a total of $212,839.50, which, subtracting from the gap, still leaves us with $124,077.42.
But that includes losing a few more positions.
Yes.
Okay.
So the number of positions in total since the beginning of this is how many?
Since the beginning of this, if we're talking level service, not over level service, because we had talked about adding some positions over level service. If
So
we're talking,
that means starting with the 805,
right.
Starting at the
805,000 level.
Yes.
So that's the loss of a second grade classroom, a third grade classroom, a fourth grade classroom. The loss of foreign language at the high school, a foreign language teacher at the high school, the not hiring of a new teacher for the Structured Learning Center, but restructuring how the current special education staff works to be able to fill that position. So that's actually a savings over what we would be spending in tuitions if we sent those kids out anyway. The English Social Studies position at the high school, half-time English teacher now on the table, a half-time social studies on the table. And,
School adjustment counselor?
yeah, and the school adjustment counselor. The other things that were taken down from the 805 are reduction of general music at the elementary level from .95 to .85. Boy, you're going to make the hamsters really run back here.
I think it's important that
Yeah.
we put this
Yeah.
information, again, just to summarize
Yeah,
for
reduction of instrumental music from 1.0 to 0.7 position.
From where?
1.0 to 0.7. Reduction of a full-time phys ed teacher slash athletic director, and just having a stipend for athletic director, and redeploying the current phys ed staff to cover K through 12. And what else have I missed? There's a half-time para that will come out, and that's just due to a student moving out, so that would be something that would not be, necessarily an undue hardship. Stipends for team leaders out. Stipends for at least one head teacher out. Reduction of clubs, general clubs, not class advisors or yearbook or whatever, but clubs at the high school from 12 to 8.
Do we know which clubs?
We've not identified those yet. We haven't identified the four that we're going to have.
So not to put you guys on the spot. There is a number associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
So without knowing clubs, we came up with a number. I'm wondering how we did that. I mean, is this just an estimate?
No, there are 12 different clubs for which stipends. We're not talking class advisors. We're not talking NHS. We're not talking yearbook. There are 12 other clubs for which we had programmed stipends in. So Mr. Cavallo's now looking at student participation in clubs, and probably the 4 least enrolled will be the ones that will be dropped.
So drama, for instance, is a club. Chorus, right, is a club.
Yes.
Amnesty International is a club, is it?
Hope.
Hope is a club.
SAD.
SAD is a
Literary
club.
Art Magazine.
I mean, some of these things, I mean, are these part of the 12 that may be considered?
Yes.
Yeah.
So some of these things are actually, enrichment plus for some of our students. This is where they learn how to be part of something, part of a community, or they learn new skills.
Right.
Again, just, we are cornered with this financial situation, but, we're looking at the other side. I don't know what it is at the final account, but it's about, say, $15,000, $10,000, whatever the amount might be. What I mean by that iceberg, the part that we don't see, there may be a huge part of that iceberg that we are really not seeing yet. And I'm concerned that, we are really making the school a place that is not fun for our students. So there's really nothing to look forward to. I'm not going to have some of the music that I used to have. I'm not going to have some of the athletics that I used to have. I'm not going to have some of the clubs that I used to have. I'm not going to have some of the electives that I used to have. I'm not potentially going to have some of the AP that I was expecting to have. And I'm not saying that this is something that you guys are doing. We're collectively actually brainstorming around this. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of those students that I think we all hope will have fun when they come to the school as they learn. I'm wondering if we are really cutting that fun factor. And by fun, I don't mean just, partying fun, just, learning something that enriches them.
Right. Just to clarify,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the instrumental music cuts do not impact this building. They're only at the elementary level.
Right. But here's the
Well,
thing.
and then you think about how much interest have you lost. It's impacted on the younger level.
Yeah.
By the time you get to high school, are you even interested in picking up an instrument or?
Well, the instrumental music will not be gone from the elementary level.
That is true. But currently, we apparently have 23 students in beginners band, the 4th grade band. The average that we had throughout several years was about 24. In our best days, we had about 34 students. The worst year, we had 17 students that joined in 4th grade. So the rule of thumb, I guess, is something like 1/3, 30 to 40% of these students do that. Next year, we're going to have a smaller class, but even then, 1/3 of the students who may have an interest or more next year will not have access to instrumental music. And I don't know whether or not it's going to have an impact on the 5th grade because of that. Because it turns out we have one of the best retention rates in 4th to 5th grade music, which is around 85% or so, whereas some other school systems have 50 to 60% and fluctuates. It may be because they're larger and it gets smaller. So it is one of those things that really connect and attach students to their schools. It makes it fun. So my big concern is, are we really making the school as a place where the core curriculum rules and everything is around that, and we have to, or do we have an opportunity to bring some of these things, prioritize some of these things? And I'm not going to do it obviously because I'm not, in the buildings. And then say, you know what, we're gonna go back and explain why these things are important, and we're gonna see whether or not we can succeed in getting some of the funds back. While we are still looking at opportunities for next year, because we said, just for the cameras too, we said that the moment we are done with this budget, we're starting thinking about the next budget. That's the urgency around the next budget process.
Absolutely.
But looking at this year, is there an opportunity for us, and there might be none, I'm looking for everyone to give that feedback, to say, if we had to pick one or two things that could help our schools if we kept them, are these things, then we'll make it part of our conversation with our town meeting in June. I don't know what they might be, but each one of these things probably have a good pros and cons argument for them, because we are trying to balance a budget from that huge gap of 800,000+. And again, thank you all for doing the work that you have done. It was an incredible gap that is down to 124,000 or so. But what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that I'm trying to make sure that this 124,000 doesn't stop us, or 200,000 doesn't stop us having the meaningful conversations that we should have around what we would like to see in our schools, because we're already cutting quite a bit on the list that you shared with us.
So do you want us, I just want to know that I'm clear on the directive from the committee.
I don't think there is.
I don't think I have a directive yet.
Okay.
This is basically
All right, put the pen down. Okay.
Can I ask a question? The because a lot of these other cuts, if it were personal for me, I would be like, no, I would say no. Instead of hiring a staff member for that SEL room and redeploying someone else, how would that affect everything else? So, I mean, is it doable? Is it easily doable?
It is doable. John and I sat with the directors of Pupil Services today and looking at the anticipated population in the life skills program and how we would sort of move things around. It's doable.
Because that to me seems like one of the best ideas. We're not cutting somebody. We're just not hiring somebody new.
Right.
We're using that money to help keep our own staff here.
Right.
So I mean, I think that you said that was 76.
Yes.
Okay. So that $76,000 right there to me sounds like a really good place to start. Because we're keeping our own staff.
So that's in addition to.
That was part of everything that she just talked about.
Okay. Okay.
As potential savings.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think to your point, Emery, piggybacking on what Dr. Houle said, I think all the cuts are doable. We keep coming to a place where, yeah, it's doable, but at what cost? I think is going to your larger point. We can all do a lot with virtually nothing for a period of time, but it's not sustainable. And, it brings us back to, we have a short-term problem and we have a long-term problem that has to be addressed. But even in the short term, shoring up this budget, what does doable mean?
Means we can make it work. That's what it means.
So what I'm counting is about close to 8 FTEs.
That's what I came up with.
Yeah. This is before if the town says or we are asked to go to 0 before we do anything in addition to that. And I think that is an important point to make to our town is that this is not the first time we're going to be looking at cuts of this magnitude. And every year you cut and cut and cut. Eventually, anything from a factory to an office, especially an educational system, will not be sustainable. I think that's the key word. So if there isn't any opportunity before we go to the depth that may be much more difficult for us to return to get back to a different level, because there is a lot of investment in the school system too. I mean, some of these things that we're looking at may be things that took years to establish. From my selfish perspective, one example, we established a great music program, and understandably, all those things come up each time there's a budget cut anywhere, not in Granby, and I'm not saying this in a critical way or disgruntled way, but for instance, let's look at that example. We built a big program, now it's shrinking. Are we really having the right conversation? Is it really causing potentially on that invisible side of the iceberg us going in the direction of not having music for a few years until we are able to get back to it? because we don't know what the ramifications of these cuts will be. And that's what scares me more so than what's visible, and we say it's doable. You know, we can actually do without some of these classes, positions for a year, maybe 2, but we are going to work very hard to get back to it. But once it's gone, is it possible to bring it back? Sometimes it's not that easy, it seems. So
Well, and we're not even there yet. We're still at 120.
we're still not there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is,
But that's
you know,
with the losing the extra teachers.
And
that's already having lost about 8 teachers and still
Yeah.
having to get to another.
2.5
That's
or
not,
so.
that's not okay
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah. And on top of that, of course, you know, these are the reduction side that we're looking at. We're also looking at, I mean, your question, how does it impact a brand new program that we are very excited about that we're bringing in-house because it's going to enable us to bring our kids back. How the class sizes now impact what we are doing or what we're trying to do in our school system. So there are additional factors beyond even the positions that we're talking about. So it is difficult.
Sorry, Kimberly, we made the reductions in transportation.
yes, with the elimination of transportation costs for middle school athletics, because we eliminated middle school athletics as well. The elimination of a late bus and going from 8 buses to 7.
Okay, do we have any direction whether we can keep that money in our budget? Even though the
No,
town
that's
pays for
why,
it?
that's why the bottom line number is now at a little bit higher gap, because, as you know, the Finance Committee was not supportive of that idea, so I did not carry that through as
Are
a
they the
continued
ones-
revenue.
But are they the ones that make that, I try to ask that there, but I never get, are they the ones that make that final decision? Who makes that final decision?
Transportation is a separate appropriation. So if we literally asked for the appropriation for transportation with all of the cuts infused, then we are asking for $740,000 in transportation versus over $800,000.
But
So-
that 60,000 could certainly help our school budget.
Yes.
It can save
Yes.
something here.
Absolutely.
So I think we have to put that on the table.
And that's what we were saying that we
Okay, I'm
would.
sorry I missed that.
No. That's a very good point to bring back, and just to make sure if anybody ends up watching this, or if anyone gets questions and gets asked, this is basically the level of transparency that we committed to bring into our process. Otherwise, if folks remember, a school budget is a school budget. It's basically, for the most part, you can just take it and you can just reallocate funds. We chose not to do that. We chose to be transparent and say this is what we are saving by reducing that extra run in our bus. So, I mean, there's no games played. We're trying to make sure that everything is out there and we make our own case for the need to have some of these positions saved, some of the operational needs met. Otherwise, it could have been, hey, you know what? The town already had the higher number for buses in the budget. Now they reduced it. That's what you said, right? So we could have gone with the higher one and just reallocated, but that wasn't the right thing from our perspective to do. So just to make that clear to everyone who may share this conversation elsewhere, or anyone who may watch us talking about it. Yet, it still doesn't help us that we're at $125,000 or so with a lot of cuts and a lot of reductions. We hate the word cut.
I guess.
And the other side that, again, concerns me as much as that is the unseen or unknown impact of these reductions.
And I guess
Yes,
the thing that's bugging me is, so we have this 336, sorry, my eyes aren't that good right now. 337
Yeah.
for the gap. And we've talked about other cuts and taking away other teachers, and we're already saying 124 as if we're doing that. And that's bothering me, because as a committee, and I'm going to repeat what Deanne said at another meeting, we promised ourselves we wouldn't do that.
Right.
That we would not try to get down to zero.
Right.
Personally, I don't want to, because we know that there is available money that we may have to ask for. For me, there are some savings here that I'm okay with, like the $76K for the special ed redeployment. Whatever the $62K or about that in admin savings, if that's possible. I mean, if that's something that you think is going to happen that doesn't harm students or the rest of the staff. And the $3,000 in automation, which takes away $137,000 off of that $337,000, leaving a $200,000 gap. That doesn't seem so large to me compared to what we've been talking about before. And so I hate to keep saying the 124 when you say 124, that means taking away a few more teachers.
I think that's a good point.
And that's it's bothering me because
we've said that from
yes, and I don't want to I don't want to get that 124 in our heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was trying to say no. Actually, that's a very good point. The 124 is not a done deal. Is not where we are before we make our final decision. What I was suggesting is that even on this list that we have, list of reductions, if there is any question in our minds that we should get into that and say, yeah, we got ourselves from 805 to where we are, which is 124.25 right now. If I were given the opportunity, because of these reasons, that we should consider putting these things back, you're absolutely correct that we made the promise that we would go and make our case and plea for that amount. With the promise that we would continue to work, starting immediately, to see what other opportunities exist to make it more efficient, more optimal for the coming years. But I mean, we have to do it in a way that is part of our explanation to the town, so that we did it because type of thing. And one thing that should not be forgotten is the fact that as a school committee we own a few things. One of those things is the strategic plan. We, in collaboration with some of the folks actually in the room, we got together, and it was a great collaboration with representative segments of our town. We put together a strategic plan. Even then, we are not able to really push that plan forward because some of the reductions that we're talking about here.
You have to revisit your timelines. Yeah.
Yeah. So, something that we own and we committed to and said we're going to push forward, we can't do it. So this is in addition to actually going back on some things that, or putting on hold some things that we thought we were immediately going forward. I mean, folks should realize that there is really no conversation around technology anymore, which is pretty painful to this committee.
Which is one of the strategic goals.
Exactly. So, going back to your point and adding to that, the message should not be that we have these reductions in terms of positions, we have these reductions or changes in terms of class sizes and stuff. We still have some gap to go, as if nothing else happened before that. We already gave up on a lot of things that we were committed to doing as part of our strategic plan, and we're not doing it.
So where do we stop? Where
That's
do we draw
exactly
the line?
the question. I don't know.
Because I don't think it's our charge to say, okay, we hit the ceiling. The town's not going to vote for any more than this or any less than this. We don't know. I don't think it's up to us to decide what number we're supposed to bring forth to the town. I think it's up to us to decide.
You have to vote something.
Well, I know that. But
And you
saying
really
this
kind of
as-
need to vote it tonight.
But I think it starts with the question of what kind of district do we want? Do we
Well, we
want a
don't want this
district
one.
that has virtually
Don't
no
want this one.
music or, what?
We don't want this one,
I know, exactly.
so we have to get some additional funds.
So we
We
also
have to ask
know
for
that
additional funds.
this is the extreme if we don't get the additional funds,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's the extreme, but I don't want to be working actually to get that to zero. I just don't.
I agree.
I can't.
We may have to, But we don't need to do it now.
Right, that's
Right.
that's what I'm saying. So really, our question is, what of this number are we going to go to the town with? Because what are we willing to give up on, and what are we not? So for me, giving up the more teachers is not okay with me at all, personally.
Which teachers we have?
So you're
What I-
talking the two halftime reductions we put on the table tonight.
Yep.
Okay.
And even, I mean, I'm not so sure I'm not as strong on the adjustment counselor, only because, honestly, I don't quite understand that whole position and what that impact is. But, so I kind of left that out of my addition, but I completely ignored those two halftime positions, because I just can't, I don't think we're doing any good by getting rid of more and more teachers. I just don't.
So that would put $56,339 back in.
What was the amount? 60, about 64? 56.
$56,339 back in.
Just cut the 76 from the SEL,
The
the
62,
62 from admin, and the 3 from the substitute. And that got you to the 137.
right, so
Which means
that
we're
left
off
us a
by
$200,000 gap.
I say, done.
Are you hearing?
Mhm.
The things that for me personally, I don't know about the rest of you, but for me personally, those savings felt okay if we had to, for me. Going any further than that, I can't,
We've already cut so much.
So you would leave
a $200,000
the net loss
gap.
for the school adjustment counselor as well?
Yeah, the only reason I left that off, I mean, that's $15,000 is because I don't truly understand the impact of that. So I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. I'm happy to keep the adjustment counselor in, because but I don't understand the impact as much.
Well,
Of that one.
it's part of the social emotional learning piece of it. So I guess it depends on how much we value
So
the other
$215,000 then.
piece of learning as opposed to
Right.
just the reading, writing, and
So $215,000 would be the gap then for me.
So you would
I would
put
keep
the
the
adjustment
adjustment
counselor thing back in and go back to the halftime guidance counselor cut. Is that what I'm hearing?
well, this is again.
I'm
This
just
is
asking.
not a directive.
Right.
I'm just asking, I'm trying to come to a number.
I guess I'm trying to figure out which one has less impact on our students. That's what I'm having trouble with, because I don't understand that part of the job. So
Well, I think in terms of the adjustment counselor thing, it would be working with students, say, for example, who are in the reflection center at that level where they might not be a frequent flyer, shall we say, but could work through the restorative practices piece and whatever and get them on their way. If they felt like a child needed a higher level of assistance, then that would go to the social worker.
So the program that we just implemented last year.
yeah.
So it would have a direct impact on that.
So we're better
junior,
off-
Senior high school.
And
So we'd be better off keeping the adjustment counselor and losing the half guidance counselor.
I'm not gonna quantify better versus worse.
Yeah.
It's
Th-
two
I mean,
different things.
That's
you
what
know?
I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out, which impact. You know what I mean? That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm having trouble with that one. Maybe it's just because I'm
Right.
half dead right now. But
My thinking is a little different. My thinking is that $77,000 in transportation we own, and we need to get that.
I would agree with that.
So
that we need to go after
we're not
that.
at 336. We're at 259. Correct?
259. How did you arrive at 259?
Well,
Because
she-
we were at
she-
289,
backed
and
out the
again,
70 plus.
because everything's not clean. I added,
I just started with the 336 and backed out the 77,840 and came up with 259. 076.
How much was the reduction on the bus run, Judy?
okay, hold on just a second. Let me get another version of this up. Boy, you guys really tax me. You really tax me. Wow, let me
Difference
see.
in transportation is
Yeah.
99,000.
So I'm just going to keep playing this out and seeing that it's around that amount. So we're looking at around
Yeah, but I took the sped out
260,000.
earlier.
Okay.
And we know that
So
money just got
total
voted in
transportation was 817, 844,
to stabilization.
Stabilization, right?
and then we're down to
That's what I'm
740.
saying.
So I'm saying, you know, worst case scenario, we already know what we need to do later on. Why not go for the 260?
I'm with you.
817, 844.
Assuming that we can keep that extra from the transportation.
And,
We're gonna fight tooth and nail for that one.
I know.
and then I
I-
have a number now
This
of
is money that is
740,
entitled to the schools. All we're doing is just
004,
Reallocating.
32.
Saving money,
The town
saving,
obviously wasn't planning on it for anything. They don't need it for anything right
and,
now.
and we're
They
trying to
won't
save it from
73,000.
transportation to help us in other areas, but they wanna hold on to it,
pay for no
817,
plan.
the finance committee.
132 minus 740.
I don't wanna say the town, because it's not the town, it's the finance committee.
77,
I think,
840.
you know, cutting any more.
We've already harmed children, in my
Because I already
estimation.
So you
took the
basically
sped
took the 73 out of the 336 and you
Yeah.
came up with that
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
So it takes out everything that recently
What
got added to
Dr.
the
Gould just said,
reduction.
yes.
Okay.
So we're saying ask for the rest of it,
Yeah.
not cut
All right,
anything else.
so now that I was busy trying to look up and do a calculation, tell me what you talked about, because I just missed it all.
What I said
Sorry.
was, just subtract the transportation out of the current gap
And ask for the rest of
and,
it.
and ask for the rest.
Well, we're going to be asking for the whole thing because that's the way it's going to be presented. So
Okay,
there's no other
so,
way because transportation, if the
I
transportation
hear what
article
you're
is
saying.
separate,
Yes, yes,
so
yes.
now it has to be added to.
But I think talking about is this more valuable than that, I think we're you know, we're beyond that. It's all
Yeah.
so I'm
maybe
sorry
just-
to
yeah.
be very frustrated right now, but I am.
No, no,
Tell me what's in and what's out, because I don't know.
we're saying ask, we're gonna go for the 336, 916, 92 in the hopes that we're gonna get the transportation and be able to knock that off. So technically what we're looking for is around 260.
So whatever we added between the last time we had this conversation and tonight, the 0.5s of English and social studies, the move around of
School
the
adjustment counselor,
yeah,
the
counselors and
substitute,
stuff. So
administrative
if we keep those
savings.
out and go with wherever we were, which includes the transportation money that now is technically out, but we would like to get it back. So that doesn't make any changes to the number that you have here, which is about $337,000, and we're thinking that we may want to ask for that amount. Partially transportation, which is already a reduction that we made and saved the town to begin with because it's coming from that side. And if we want to, look at it separately, then you take 73 out, and it just leaves us with $200 and something thousand dollars. 260 plus $1,000. So we're basically going to ask for that.
So what we're asking for the town is to approve the reappropriation of the transportation
Okay.
money, correct?
So
So
I
you
can
want
make
the
it easy.
77,840 back,
Which is
Okay.
the transportation.
right?
So we're just asking for the town to approve the reallocation of those funds to
Okay.
the school budget.
So here's, so you want the administrative piece restored?
Yep.
You want all teaching positions restored that are on this latest list that I just gave you?
Yep. And what we're saying is it's gonna go in the back pocket if in the event this vote doesn't get approved.
No. Actually, say it again. No.
I'm really confused.
Yeah. So let me offer this. Let us have this conversation and just talk through instead of getting frustrated because numbers are numbers. We'll get to the final number. Don't worry about it, and we'll tell you exactly what it means. But the important thing is for us to decide and agree on what is in, what is out. Then we can just match the numbers. That's no biggie. So one thing that I'm hearing is in the calculation that the final number that you had for us, Judy, the $124,000.
Yep.
There was an assumption that that included $62,000 potential savings that wasn't yet out there, or just you cannot give us details on. I thought we were okay with that.
That one I'm okay with.
That's what I'm trying to get to the
Yeah.
bottom
Right,
of here.
I think that's
So
where
when we
you're
say
getting
back
that.
everything out, we're
We
basically
don't need
backing
to.
out stuff that we don't need to back out because
Exactly.
we just agreed to that.
Yes, that's
Okay.
exactly what we're saying.
Okay.
So what we're saying is, what you were saying about the number isn't really correct, because it's not just about the transportation.
Mm-hmm.
We're okay with that $62,000 administrative savings. And
Yep.
we're okay, I'm okay anyway, with the SEL room, the redeployment of our own staff instead of hiring somebody else. So
Which
right
is the
there,
72? Is that what it is?
76,
76.
66.
Okay.
and the 3,000 in automating the substitute
Yeah,
calling.
and that
That's
substitute calling will be the
137,000.
gift that keeps on giving, because
Right.
after you
And
pay,
stop there.
after you
And
pay,
Stop there.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
137,000 right there, taken off of that gap number that we
The
don't, that we're okay
336,
with.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And then
so,
the transportation.
All right.
Yes, okay.
And then if they give us that transportation money, that's even less of money that we
Right.
have to ask
Okay,
for.
so what's,
138, right?
okay, so,
137.
Okay.
school adjustment counselor, in or out?
in,
I think that one's in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take the savings
We don't
for
need
that
that
off
somewhere
the
else.
table.
We don't need that somewhere else in the whole system.
Well, they're
That
saying,
We're
what I'm
saying-
hearing you say is put the school adjustment counselor back in and go back to 1.5 guidance counselors versus 2. Okay? So, let me just go. Okay, that's what I'm trying to process here. I'm sorry for being slow tonight.
No,
but,
that's good.
um,
We don't need to rush. These are important things.
So, if I take the teaching positions off the table, take the school adjustment counselor off the table, we are now looking at a total set of cuts of $141,727, which makes your gap at $195,189.92. Now, that said, if you're looking for an additional revenue stream of $77,840, hold on just one moment, because I do not trust my brain without a calculator right now.
And that's the bus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're looking at adding to your bottom LEA line $117,349.92.
And that's the number we would be asking the town for.
So then you would be asking for, let me go.
You would also ask for transportation
yes,
too.
we have to add. the
Right, we have to,
transportation.
right.
We just did, didn't we?
Separate.
Well,
appropriate.
we're just, what we need, we have to try to get.
They're looking to put it in operating. They're not
Yeah,
looking to
we're
add
trying to
buses
get the
back.
town to
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
reallocate it instead of
Just
keeping it.
just
but yeah.
reallocating. But we,
But I know what you're saying.
But it's not gonna be that separate transportation appropriation.
Right.
You're looking for it to be redeployed
Okay,
as
Right.
revenue for your operating
Right.
expenses.
Right.
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
okay. It's okay. I'm breathing deeply.
We're getting there.
I'm breathing deeply. All right, so right now, the LEA amount
we're gonna have to do that.
that you are looking at. Boy, oh boy, I have to think about how I'm going to do this. Nope, this is off. Let me think about. Give me a moment to put some logic together so that I do this right.
And we have checks and balances.
And of course, I have a room full of people watching.
No, that's why we need to, slow
I'm
down
trying to,
and.
yeah.
Yeah, let Archie and I put our collective
Exactly.
brains together, and anybody else in the back of the room would like to have their brain in the mix.
Okay.
So,
200.
So,
But I mean, but that's in
the
or
adjustment
250 or
constellation and the
250.
sped teacher are cuts
272.
Then
along
you're
with,
talking with
no,
77,
the adjustment counselor's back in.
Back in.
yeah, okay.
So,
I'm taking the 70. I'm taking the 76.
We're looking
plus
at
62.
the sped teacher,
because we're those were saving
the administrative,
to do
and the substitute
teachers.
thing. So this is what we're looking at cutting out.
It's this number.
Yeah, okay.
Minus those things.
That's what I
that we're
got.
okay with.
Right.
I'm not even
But
looking at
then we gotta factor in
Tuesday,
Okay,
That.
I get it.
that.
I
So
get-
which actually
and then we
That's
reduces
back in.
this
So
number.
I got about 215. Is what we need to ask.
Before transportation.
Does it not?
Correct.
No, we want the town to give that to us.
Right.
We have to vote it, that's in addition too.
Right. So, but I'm trying to get them to come to an LEA number they can vote tonight.
LEA would be that, yes.
So the LEA would be this. Off of the,
And that includes the 0.5 social
yeah, we
studies
got
teacher.
that. So we'd be taking 140, whatever it is, off of this 8613911224. FY17 LEA number. So we'd be reducing that number by that, right? Am I thinking logically? So the LEA number, we would be taking another 140, whatever it is,
Off of that.
off of that.
Right.
So this equals,
This is where we needed the wait please music, you know,
Minus.
in the background.
Jeopardy music.
Hold
da, 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 da. No, I'm sorry.
A lot of volunteers.
Music is math, so that's what I. 141. And by the way, I have lived the music scenarios you were talking about because we were in a similar pickle in the 1980s when I was in the classroom. Yes, I am that old. Oh gosh. So minus 141, 727. Okay. So I'm looking at that as an LEA number. Equals that cell minus the 141, 727.
Right. And,
How did you, boss?
yeah.
Pressure's on.
And then the transportation number, we would have to ask the bigger number to be appropriated. If they would,
But we want it to be operating. We don't want it to go to transportation. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, they do. Let me. Okay,
So then
we would add it back
oh,
into
then
the budget.
so we would add it back into the revenue stream.
That's right.
Okay, so now I'm coming up.
Thanks.
That's just what we're gonna-
Why? You see the panic in my eyes
No, no.
versus the whites in my eyes? So 844.32. I add that back in as a revenue stream.
7.4, right?
Yeah.
32.
It's much
What
easier.
happened there?
We took the 76 plus
no.
62.
I know. Just let me fix it, would you?
What's the 15?
The adjustment.
0.3,
Sorry, we brought that back
Okay,
in.
that was the gap that I had.
Just take that away from the number that's here.
So then, by adding that back in as a revenue stream here, so I've gone from the 740 to the 817, 844, excuse me, backspace, 817, 844. Then
Yeah.
we come down to the gap between net and expenses, 259 and change.
215.
Okay.
But the LEA number we're asking for
Yeah, you're right.
is this, expense-wise, but we're also asking for an additional revenue of 77,840 in order to get us down even that far.
Right.
That's why we already have something.
Yeah.
Just take this number, take those away.
Which would be, yeah, that plus
Yeah.
the 77.
That plus the
840.
77. So do they vote that plus the 77,840 as a number?
Yeah, because we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'd have to add, so we'd have to add that in.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to go through it, but
All right, I think I got it.
Explain it to me, Lucy.
Okay, Desi.
Yeah,
Plus-
back in,
Yeah.
what they want to add back in, but now we have to add transportation
That's correct.
to that.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So the number they're actually voting tonight is, with all things considered, is $8,550,025 and whatever cents that may be.
That's correct.
Okay, so what I did here was, I said, here's the bottom line with the 141,727 taken off. Okay, then I went back in and instead of the 740,004, I changed the number back to the 817,844.
I guess my question on that though, they're changing the 8s, and that's the transportation.
Yep,
So you're putting it in here
yep.
as, but
Or do I not put it in there and just add, and use this number instead? Is that
But
double
yeah.
counted?
no, I think what it is though is that the 817.
Yeah.
I guess if we consider that the transportation number, what
Yeah.
do we have the transportation number funded at?
740,004.32.
And is that with buses out?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the buses out, and then
The
so what we-
817 was with all the buses in, including athletics, including late bus, including the 8th bus.
But I think we want to, because don't we, I would want to reduce that by the 7 because we need to get that money to go towards the LEA, not the, you know, if we're trying to get a budget, the budget here 8.5
Yep.
equals this number here minus some of the
The cuts plus the
Plus the
transportation, so
we,
I need
we
to
gotta
make
stop
this
talking about it as I guess
Yeah.
transportation. So
extra operational, so I would leave this as the 740, right?
let's see what that does. I think that
740,004. So that puts that back at the 336.
All right, that's not what-
No, no.
But here, we've done, but
done-
here, I did it off to the side.
Right.
So this number still looks like
that's correct.
this number.
That's correct.
So this number takes into account that,
Yeah.
takes into
okay,
account
right.
adding the extra
Yeah.
revenue. So this is the number they need to vote
That's
tonight.
correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
You're good.
You take
So it comes down, yeah.
All right,
Yep.
how many minds does it take to figure this out? Okay,
take all those things and take it out of this 336. It comes down
all right.
to 170.
I think we've got it by George.
I hope so. I'm still seeing the same number.
Oh,
I know, because I'm doing the numbers there, checking my math. See, because I don't trust myself.
Transportation is still there.
Okay,
Yes.
so here's where we are at. The current LEA number that you have on the sheet you got tonight is $8,613,912.24.
Yes.
That, in essence, is what the number would be that, quote unquote, you'd vote the LEA number. The all funds number doesn't really matter because it's the LEA number that is the raise and appropriate. If I take out the 141,727, which was the cuts you were comfortable with me taking out of the latest iteration, that reduces that number to $8,472,185.24.
What is it amount that you're taking out again?
The $141,000, which is the administrative reduction,
Right.
the special education reduction
Yeah.
not addition at the high school, and the substitute automation.
Okay.
So then you're going to also be asking off the top for an additional revenue from the town of $77,840.
Bus
Which-
one.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Which brings the bottom line LEA ask for you of $8,550,025.24.
No, wait, 8,530,025.
$550,025.24. 8550025
Yep.
and 24 cents.
Yep.
Okay, so then the gap is what?
The gap would be I knew you'd ask that.
That's, at the end of the day, all I really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know,
So your
I
gap
know.
would be
I know.
185.
Give me a
plus-
moment. So, the gap then comes down to, if it's
It's about 262 or so.
195, and then you would add to that the 77,840.
Yep.
So it really needs to be a negative.
What was this number?
77,840.
72.
Oh no, that would be a positive. Sorry.
Right. Just wanted to put it up.
Awesome. So that makes the actual gap.
No, it's higher. It's a negative. You gotta make that a negative. It'd be 260 something.
That's an offset. That's a revenue.
I think it's around 262
Yeah,
or so.
265. Yeah.
Okay. Yep, got it. Okay, got it. Hold on. One last thing. I want to make sure I give you a precise number. That's why Archie's here. Okay.
Yep, that would be it. 273,029.92.
Yep. So that makes the gap 273,029.92.
Okay, so I'm gonna be the nitpicker. It seems,
Please do.
something seems a little off to me.
It seems way off to me.
We're gonna start haggling now.
I'm doing calculations on a spreadsheet, friends. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
You're looking at the LEA number for FY17. First, let's start there.
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the gap number.
The gap number only went down by like,
Yeah.
60,000.
Judy,
60,000.
would you mind just repeating the reductions on the admin side? Yep.
$62,061.
$62,061. Okay, and how about the for the SEL, the internal allocation?
$76,666.
Okay, and $3,000 flat. We're assuming for the other one, right?
Correct. Grand
Okay.
total $141,727.
727. Could you also give us the savings from the bus, or the savings that were realized but did not include in our
It's 77.
$77,840.
840? So what we are saying is, since we already know our starting point, which was 336 something, if I can read that, 337. I'm just going to go with that. 337. And I'm just going round numbers here. We are taking $142,000 out of that, just round number. That brings us to 195. We're adding the bus, which is 78.
What is the number for the bus?
$77,840.
Is it about 270 something that you came up
Yes.
with?
Yeah,
272 plus?
73, oh,
That's-
29,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
So
Yep.
that's what it is.
Alright.
So there was another thing that I heard here related to the adjustment counselor. What are we doing with that?
My understanding is that that is off the table as a cut, that we're going back to social work, either two social workers or social worker school adjustment counselor full-time, and reducing guidance from 2 FTEs to 1.5 FTEs.
And that means the
done that
halftime
Yeah.
social studies, halftime ELA,
Stays.
Have come off the table.
right. Okay.
The administrative cut is still there, and the substitute automation cut is still there.
So we are closer to a number. I will throw this out one more time before we make. And I think you had a good idea to the extent that we can. Just if we can go building by building and just see the impact and what this means. If we cannot, that's fine too. But to the extent we can, there are a few things that started our conversation a while ago. One of them was the section reductions at the elementary level, second, third, and fourth, which increased the classroom sizes. The other one was the reductions around English social studies, which will have an impact on the AP and some electives. And the other one is music, because we're talking about 1/3, if not more, of our students who year after year have been showing some interest. So that's basically a program that had established itself. Is there anything on these items that we would consider potentially impactful going forward? So we basically make these cuts, but this is not just affecting this year, but this is potentially affecting how we provide education, in what type of setting, what type of enrichment. Is there anything else that we should consider around these three?
Meaning adding back in?
Adding some of it back in. Is there any way to make it partial and add it back in? I don't know what it is. And the answer may be no, there is no reason to make it partial, or we're comfortable with it, that's all. But because we're going to come up with a final number, I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page, with a lot of pain, but we're all on the same page nonetheless as we come up with that final number.
Do you want the idealistic answer, or do you want a realistic answer? Or
Either or is fine. I want to make sure that everything is put on the table so that we don't just walk out thinking that, hey, there was something else I wanted to say and we did not talk about it.
How do I answer that? There's not any part of me that's comfortable with cutting music, instrumental, phys ed, clubs,
Municipal sports.
I'm not comfortable with any of it. So that's the idealistic answer, is the enrichment programs. If I had my way, I'd add every single one of them back in.
Okay. All right, so we're not going to ask Deanne.
Asked and answered, Emery.
No, good. Thank you for that.
Well,
Beyond that, it's then you're picking and choosing, and I'm not so sure I'm in a position to say music is more important than clubs at the high school.
That's
I don't
absolutely,
feel
yeah,
comfortable.
that's fair. That's fair. So looks like we currently have.
Can I render an
Oh,
opinion?
absolutely, yeah.
The most impactful thing would be that 4th grade section.
4th grade section.
And how much, what is that in terms of money?
Un momento. That's why we have a happy workbook.
62,115.
No. I don't believe that's correct. Let me just get there. And it'll take me a minute. Because I was at the bottom of that particular page in the workbook, so now I get it back up to where I was.
Right. Yeah, rough. Yeah, exactly.
Master is 10. And you're probably right on the money, my friend.
I'm looking right at your PowerPoint.
So it would be $62,114.90. If I were to say one thing jumped off the page at me, that would be the one thing.
Still reviewing again, if school opened tomorrow, the new school year opened tomorrow, there would be, how many students in kindergarten?
Help me, friends, because I can't hold all of these numbers in my head. How many students in kindergarten?
44 according to the numbers last year.
I have for next year 37.
There's 13.
We have
Okay.
35 and 2 will be moving into town. So we're up to 37.
18 and 18 in a room. First grade, 2 teachers,
3.
3 teachers in first grade, class
Yes.
size,
15,
We said 38.
15.
We're talking about kids moving forward, so the town book is probably not the best source to look
Right,
at.
so going by what you know,
Three,
45.
yeah, 3 sections of 15, yep.
second grade, 2 teachers next year? With
Yes.
How many teachers? 2? I mean, how many kids?
47 altogether.
Second?
24 in a grade 2 classroom?
Mm-hmm.
Grade
47,
three?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
47 with
Yeah.
two sections?
Yes.
Third grade with 2,
47.
So 23, 24.
23, 24. Fourth grade is the 27,
26,
28 with 2
27, yeah.
teachers we're
Yep.
talking.
Mhm.
Fifth
27,
grade,
3 sections,
69.
69 students.
any discussion about whether an extra teacher in fourth grade is better than extra in fifth? And I'm not trying to play games here.
Well, that's 23
Great.
in 3 sections at 69 students.
But again, if we did have short of number, is it better to have 3 fourth grade than 3 fifth grade?
Well, you're going to push 5th grade, you'd push up 5th grade to 34, 35 kids. That would be very impactful. Be the last thing I'd recommend.
So with
Okay,
all this,
just trying to layer that out. Okay,
that helps remember another question. With all the tightening, how does this impact our targets or projections for school choice? If we're already
Obviously, we
tight-
can't accept, we're not going to accept in 2nd grade, we're not going to accept it this time in 3rd grade, and we're not going to accept in 4th grade at this
And
time.
what were our projections for those grades before we got into this?
Hold on just one moment while I look for that
Yeah,
piece of
yeah.
information.
So here's my other thinking. If we were to reinstate music and some PE and some clubs, we could get to the $62,000 number too,
62,000.
around that same number.
Oh yeah, I mean,
As a
there's
fourth
nothing.
grade teacher.
This is better than the other, but I'm just trying to understand the education impact or other impact, and I think that's.
What was the question you were asking me about school
How many
choice?
how many school choice students had we projected for those grades that are now not able to accept anyone?
We had projected potentially 6 in grade 2, 6 in grade 3, and 10 in grade 4.
So we are going to forego 22 school choice students.
And in any one of those grades, those numbers in and of themselves would not be cost effective for adding a section back in. You would not raise, you would A, have to assume that all those seats would be filled, and B, even if you did, it would not cover salary and benefits.
But we're not getting a lot of applications anyway, correct?
We're not.
Last time we had 1 for 8th grade. I don't know if there's any change.
We've had a couple more for 8th grade. We've had a couple for 2nd grade that we have waitlisted, just in case something does pop up.
So at least for this year, it looks like this is what it is.
Just going back to the whole program, so those kids in K through 6, they'll have PE. Somehow you're going to make this PE thing work, which is just mind-boggling to me.
We're going to have to.
Well, you know,
And then they'll have
actually,
music once a week,
Yes.
that's a good
art
point.
once a week.
But that's a requirement, isn't it? I mean,
We'll have art once a week. It depends because we also have a contractual obligation for preparation periods for teachers. So right now, East Meadow School gets a double dose of media center because they get a media center, you know, sort of a library time and then also a technology time. At the opposite is true at West Street School for music. They get music twice a week. And media once a week. East Meadow gets media twice a week, music once a week, art music once a week, and phys ed once a week. Also with the reduction in sections, obviously, that's why we were reducing the music teacher position. The art position pretty much stays static.
Okay. Good luck doing that schedule.
So does it mean that for the number of sections, reluctantly, but are we in agreement then for the what is it? Second, third, and fourth grade section reductions? We are.
Not thrilled with it.
We know we're not at all. We're not.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're seriously considering adding something back in, I would be more in favor of adding in enrichment programs as opposed to
Yeah.
the fourth grade.
So that's where I'm going right now.
Okay.
That's a good thought. Let's see if that is something that we want to consider.
Enrichment programs meaning what, Deanne?
Meaning, what you're saying about PE and
Music, clubs, and all that.
2 and 3 schools and music and
So the special
clubs
stuff.
and
The
the
special
specials. The things that kids actually like about school.
Yeah.
And those, again, just to make it clear for Mike, that those are not just preparation periods for teachers, but those are very important subjects that are very meaningful to a lot of kids.
Right.
Well, they
Those
teach,
people doing a very important job.
absolutely, and they teach social and emotional skills, and, it's an outlet for a lot of kids, and,
Yeah.
It's a career for some kids in the future.
yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Absolutely.
So with that, the junior senior high chorus, is it all club based?
Yes.
So we have an average 17 or so students in that program, and I already mentioned that currently we have 23 in the beginning band. Next year probably it might be fewer because we have a smaller class coming in. So that's one thing. So between the clubs and the music, we are potentially impacting, I don't know, 20 plus 15, 35, 50 or so students. Is that fair to say, or is it out of whack?
I don't know the numbers, so I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Class sizes at the high school, since we did everything through 6, could we have a rough idea what those will look like? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, sort of, I know it's hard, but what are we looking at for class sizes?
Remember at the budget hearing, somebody said that there was
We
like
won't talk about this.
38 or something in one class.
And there isn't.
And you said you were going to try to kind of figure that out a little bit.
Well, that was where we came up with the halftime English and the halftime social studies positions, is that you would go from being in the teens to in the 20s in those classes.
Math classes, what kind of sizes, and any math classes in the junior senior high school?
It varies depending on the course. So some of the, the core classes are in the high teens, low 20s. You get into some of the specialty courses, there are less kids. But there's also a requirement on the part of the state colleges and universities for 4 years of mathematics. So now for admission into a state college or a university, you have to have 4 years. So to dial that back would put that student's ability to meet that requirement in jeopardy. In the area of science, you're looking at lab sciences that are capped at 24 kids per section, so you really can't look at that.
I just throw it out, and again, I'm
Yep.
not trying to pit one against another.
No, I
because of my
hear you.
elementary background, but if we're all going to put, 27 or 28, if it stays that way in a fourth grade classroom, or 23 or 24 in a second or third, we've got to look ahead too to make sure that we don't have, and I know they may happen, that we don't have classes of 12 or something in a junior class unless it's really special, because the class size is so important for the building of the basic skills for these kids. you know, who are still finding their way, you know, who still have to get the basics,
Right.
Which is.
That's
job
why
that
the fourth grade, to be honest, that's why the
Right.
fourth grade cut. In terms of specials and enrichment and whatever, you are preaching to the choir here, because this is my skill set. This is my life's work. Other than why I decided to jump into administration, which some days I wonder about. But anyway, be that as it may,
What is it?
But
when I'm looking at class sizes in fourth grade where a whole year of academics, I mean, we'll make it work with special education and trying to work things around, but a whole year of academics for an entire grade level could be impacted versus enrichments and other things that could potentially be provided in other kinds of ways.
Didn't we just have the conversation an hour ago that the class sizes, you know, if you're not at one end or the other end?
Yeah, but you're teetering at the top end in fourth grade. You get 3 or 4 kids who move in, you're in the 30s. That's the danger zone. Then you're in a different place. Then you're going to have another superintendent who's going to come to you and say, we need to go back to the town and ask for an additional teacher.
And those students are in that classroom the whole time in that size. So if you have 20,
Not the entire day, because some kids get special education services, so they're going out for special education or Title I reading, Title I math, or remedial reading and math. So yeah, there's some mixing of those numbers here and there for some of those core subjects. So it does take some of the load off. But you asked about priorities. I'm just rendering my opinion on the subject.
Thank you.
For what it's worth.
It's worth a lot.
all right. So a quick conversation around the other subject that we did not finish yet: the clubs and music. I mean, I'm just going to ask this point blank once again. Are we sure that we're really saving the amount that we say we're saving through clubs? I mean, are we, or is it potentially much smaller and we do away with clubs and, you know, we impact tons of kids?
You have a contractual agreement for what club stipends are. Mr. Cavallo programmed for 12 of those stipends in his staffing request. He has taken out 4 of them. So the number is bound by contract.
Okay, so that's basically
Correct.
Pretty accurate. 4, we've taken 4 clubs out. Is that what you said?
Correct. We went from 12 club stipends that are not class advisors or NHS or yearbook
Down to
or some
8
of this,
clubs.
down to 8 clubs.
Okay. All right.
And there was a number in here from one of the PowerPoints,
Mm-hmm.
but it says club stipends. Is that the same?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's about 17,000.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do we know how many kids are in those 4 clubs this year?
No, I don't. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't think that the determination has been made as exactly which of those clubs.
Oh, okay. So we're
Would
going to
be
do
the
4,
ones.
but we don't know which 4.
Right.
Okay. All right. Everybody's okay with the club reductions? I mean, okay, just, are we in agreement with that part? So that brings me then to my last question, once again, make a full circle, related to instrumental 4th grade especially. I don't know what the impact is in West Reed School not having that part of it as well. Are we really giving these students what we would like to give?
I'm going to be honest. I taught instrumental music to elementary kids. 4th grade is a tough year. It's when you get attrition because kids do not have the breath support or even the physical strength to hold some of these instruments. You get a stronger program if you start them in 5th. I'm going to be blunt honest with you. I did the work. I know what it means.
Well, I also shared with you that I don't know about the breath part, but I started in first grade, so I have that experience myself. I was playing a string instrument, mandolin, but it's still. I think I'm thinking of the formation part of it more so than being able to give me a great saxophone solo or something.
Yeah, but it's a different animal when it's a band instrument than it is when it is a string instrument. For example, if you had a string program, you'd have Suzuki half-size violins or whatever else the kids can handle. Piano, yeah, I started when I was in 4th grade on piano.
Yeah.
I majored in music and was quite successful at that whole thing. I still play, but wind instruments. I have played trombone in methods classes in my training. I can barely reach 7th position. There's no way a 4th grader, unless you give them a valve trombone,
Yeah,
is
we have
going to
the
be able.
extenders if they need to, and I think it is. We're getting into details, but I guess what I'm trying to understand is what is the impact again on the students who may have in their minds as we're approaching the end of this school year that next year I was going to pick up something and play, and suddenly it's unavailable to me. What does it mean to their parents? What does it mean to us? On the other side as well, because when I say us, I'm talking about the entire school district. Does it potentially have an impact on kids who would like to really play it in 4th grade and who may not want to stick around? One, it's true for almost anything, but I'm thinking about that. Also, in terms of preparation for future years of the band. I don't think that those are all clear cut. I appreciate your input, and obviously you have a lot more experience than I do in teaching that.
I got to tell you,
to be very honest, I'm not really comfortable with that one, especially having had 2 kids go through 4th grade band who benefited incredibly. That first year. Yes, it wasn't pleasant when they were practicing at home, but seeing them improve and do something with it at the end of the year, I think helped them as young individuals, little individuals. So.
Yeah, but I can also tell you that for students who rented instruments, at the end of that first 3 months when you had to figure out if you were going to move on or not, that's when I lost a bucket load of kids every year.
But I think what Emery's point is at least they had the choice.
Right. But there are other towns around us that don't have 4th grade band. A lot of them.
My son
And historically,
did 4th grade
and I understand,
also,
historically the reason was because we've had that transition from grade 3 to 4. It was the thing to do once you got to 4th grade. And that's the way it's, I know it doesn't say, we can say it's always been that way, but again, from my perspective, it has worked. It has worked. Yes, everyone is not going to continue with something, just like they get on the sports team. They don't play forever. They play until they've had it. But this is a commitment, and that's the only way to build. It's like the minor league to build the band at this level. If you lose that, it hurts. And I'm sure our music parents, there's other parent groups that do things in our schools too, but the music parents is the one that's been the strongest, most vocal, most active, contributes the most money. That I don't know how they feel about it, and we're impacting them and not giving those kids that chance, I think. So that does really hurt, and I wish there's some other way around that, because we don't have many arts in this district. We are not happy about it. It's worked. It's things I've said for years. Granby's done so much with very little, and now it's just reaching the boiling point where it's like we're just.
This is the tipping point that I predicted last year.
We're just going to dismantle our system, especially with the enthusiasm for a new school. It just doesn't make sense.
None of this does, Jim. None of this does.
Yeah.
So how does everybody else feel about adding back in any of the enrichment the specials?
I don't know how close we should get to going over that amount that we want to ask for. At the risk of asking for too much and losing everything.
Actually, that my final thing after that, if there is conversation is fine, then I will probably look to wrap it up. But my final question is this. If something happens, we're looking at the governor's version of the budget. If something happens, we find additional funds. Do we have an understanding as to what we're going to do with those additional funds. Is it going to be in terms of, or are we going to have the opportunity to have another conversation and say we would like to reinstate something, or we're good, we actually are comfortable with it now and we're not going to, we're going to subtract it from our budget. Is there a legal, first of all, limitation to what we can or cannot do? And beyond that, do we have a prioritization that may allow us to go through that exercise to say, you know, we're going to put this back and something else aside from that?
If in the event that school choice, and school choice is only up by about $27,000, so it's not something you can run to the bank and be real happy about. Even if that $27,000 holds, it is not money you would be asking for an additional appropriation from the town for. So you potentially could then take that school choice money and do a sort of a supplemental budget, as it were, for that. But you got a long way to go before you even begin to know what that $27,000 would look like, whether you'd even make it that far. Again, I haven't seen the final House number. That $27,000 is a result of the House Ways and Means Committee. So it has yet to pop out of the full House. It's got to go through the Senate, and then it's got to go to the governor's desk, and he has a line item veto and an agenda.
I suspect that on some of these educational stuff, he can veto, legislature will have the 2/3 to override it, especially on the education stuff. But you're probably right on the other hand that the increase is not going to be very substantial, at least as it looks right now.
That's correct.
For us to do much with it. Okay, I just wanted to check to see, what our action plan is if anything great happens, anything unexpected happens. So with that, is everyone comfortable to call this our final number for tonight, and then we go from here? I mean, anything happens, it's still our budget, we can look at it, but we have to make a decision and call it our final figure. Can you had...
Sure. So you would need a motion at this point based on the conversation that we have had. You would need a motion to approve the local budget of $8,550,025.24.
Can you say that number again?
$8,550,025.24.
Okay. Can we round the 24 cents to a... No. All right.
Do we need to break that down by what the finance committee suggests to us of expenses and salaries?
We need to break it in 3 meetings. That's what they're asking for.
Just like it was at last year's. That's the way it is at town meeting. That's what they've asked.
That's how they show it on there. I'll share that with you, or we'll find it. But that's how they're gonna want to see it.
All right. Well, I mean, we can break that apart.
We can give that to them.
Yeah, we can break it apart in that way, but that's basically what you need to vote, is you need to vote that number.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who made the first?
Marie made the motion. Jen seconded. Is there any question? Do you have any questions? Are you fine with this? So this is, just to be clear, this is our LEA final LEA number that will be approved by the school committee. The motion is for $8,550,025.24, and there is a second for it. No other comments or questions heard. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anything
Previews of coming attractions.
else?
Next Monday.
Okay.
We're back.
Yeah.
Meeting at 6. Just wanted to confirm the time.
Yes.
Okay. 4 things that I see as potential agenda items, since it will be my grand finale, little pirouette, would be the emergency operations plan, which is in its final stages of being fully massaged and ready to go. The pre-K through 12 science curriculum, which I'm putting the final touches on and putting the document together for you. The interim superintendent's evaluation, summative evaluation. And then you had talked about doing a school committee self-evaluation.
Yeah.
And you had talked about doing that potentially before Cheryl takes over. So this is a copy of a template from MASC for school committee self-evaluation. That has some potential things that if you decided to go with that, I could do it as a Google form, and you could self-evaluate and tally the results and bring them in and have a discussion, or if you want to wait until another period in time before you figure that out.
So let me ask everyone, would you, first of all, let me ask another question. The interim superintendent's evaluation, we already had some conversation. What are we going to do with this discussion?
You have done my formative evaluation.
Yeah.
I now need to present you with evidence leading to a
Okay,
summative
yeah,
evaluation, a rating on the 4 standards individually, and then an overall rating.
Okay. All right. So, 2 things. One is to the committee. Would you like to do this next week, or would you like to
I'm
take
not
a?
so sure I want to do this particular form at all.
Okay.
This isn't actually what I had in mind when I was thinking of the self-evaluation. I don't know about you
Table this
guys.
until.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to review it more, but
Yeah.
But I think we need to spend next week more time on the other agenda items.
That's what I'm getting to. So Judy, if you don't mind, we can table this one.
Sure.
And talk about it later. And if you would like to be part of it, we can invite you, and you can
It's all right.
hear what we
I'm
have
good.
to say about ourselves.
It's good.
or at the very least, thoughts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
we would like to have that.
Seeing as it goes the other
Let's
way
give it
so
a good
much.
month.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my memories will be a little fonder, is that what you're saying?
Wounds heal.
Yep.
There's no wounds.
So I think the other 3 items are important and very important enough that it will allow us to spend more time on those. Unless
Rats, I was
something else
hoping you'd
comes up.
spend less time on mine. No, just kidding.
Yeah. Oh no, just yours is there. We have the emergency operations plan, and we have the pre-K-12 science curriculum, which we've been.
Right. Those are the 3
waiting
big
for.
things. Any, other things that might pop up, little things like field trips or whatever, I have not seen yet, but those are the big things that I see as upcoming. And as soon as I can get things polished off, I'm working most strenuously on the emergency operations plan. As soon as I can get them dusted off, I'll get them your way so you have some time to review before Monday.
Sounds good. Anything else for tonight?
Nope,
We're all set?
we are.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second? Is there a second? Anyone
I'll
who wants to
second.
go home?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
At 10:04.